All right, let's tackle a question that sounds really simple, but honestly, it has massive consequences for anyone thinking about retirement. And that is, how much of your money should you actually keep in cash? To get to the bottom of this, let's just start with a number, a big one, $180,000. That's how much a retired couple with over $1 million in savings lost over 10 years. And get this, it wasn't because of a stock market crash or some risky investment. Nope. It was from the one thing they thought was keeping them totally safe: cash. That's right. They didn't lose $180,000 from their account balance. The number on their statement looked just fine. They lost it in purchasing power, what their money could actually go out and buy. Just by holding too much cash, their savings were quietly bleeding value, year after year after year. So this brings us to the big puzzle we're going to solve today. How on earth is it possible that the money you think is the most secure, the most stable, is actually a guaranteed way to lose wealth over time? Let's break it down. It really all starts with this trap that our own intuition sets for us. It's this fundamental misunderstanding of what safety really means when you're retired. It's a trap that feels super comfortable, but wow, is it costly? I mean, this is the thought process, right? It feels perfectly logical. Our brains are literally hardwired to avoid seeing our account balance go down. It feels good to see that number stay stable. The problem is, that feeling of safety is just dangerously incomplete. It ignores a guaranteed risk to avoid a potential one. And this slide just illustrates it perfectly. You've got two core risks. On the one hand, yeah, there's market volatility. Your balance can drop overnight, and cash absolutely protects you from that. But on the other hand, you've got this slow, silent, and totally guaranteed risk of inflation. And against that, cash has zero protection, none. So let's zoom in on that invisible threat for a second. The best way to think about inflation isn't as some number you see on the news. Think of it as an invisible tax you pay every single year on every single dollar you hold in cash. And here's how that tax bill adds up. Let's say you've got $200,000 sitting in cash. With just a pretty normal 3% inflation rate, you lose about $6,000 in real buying power in the first year alone. And that's not some paper loss. That's a real vacation you can't take anymore, or months of groceries you can't buy. And this is where it gets really deceptive over time. Look at this chart. The bar on the left shows your nominal balance. It might even go up a little bit, thanks to interest. You look at your statement, you see $366,000, and you feel safe. But the bar on the right, that's the reality. After you factor in inflation, your real purchasing power has actually shrunk down to $272,000. You literally have more dollars, but those dollars buy less stuff. You've gotten poorer while thinking you were being safe. Okay, to see how this plays out in the real world, let's look at a little case study. We're going to meet 3 retirees. They all start with the exact same amount of money, $800,000, but they end up in wildly different places based on just one decision: how they handle their cash. So first up, meet Margaret. She's pretty nervous about the market, so she keeps half of her entire portfolio, a whopping $400,000, in what she thinks of as super safe cash and CDs. Next, we have Robert. He takes a more balanced approach. He keeps about 1 year of his living expenses, so around $80,000 in cash. And the other 90%? He invests that in a standard 60-40 portfolio. That's a pretty common mix of 60% stocks for growth, 40% bonds for stability. And finally, there's Susan. She uses a more structured 3-bucket system. She's got a small bucket of cash for right now, a medium-term bucket of bonds for the next few years, and a long-term bucket of stocks for growth. Okay, so let's fast forward 15 years. The results of these 3 strategies are, well, they're staggering. Margaret, our cash hoarder, actually lost $54,000 in real purchasing power from her cash pile. Meanwhile, Robert almost doubled his real wealth to $1.55 million. And Susan, with her structured approach, she ended up with $1.4 million. Now think about that. Robert and Susan went through the exact same market ups and downs, but their strategies allowed their wealth to grow far beyond what inflation could take away. So the shocking difference in those outcomes really reveals a fundamental truth. We have to completely reframe how we think about cash. It is not an investment that's meant to grow. It is a very specific tool with a very specific job. And this is the first key principle. It is so important.
Margaret felt safe every single night looking at her stable cash balance, but her financial reality was actually getting worse. Robert and Susan, they might have felt a little bit of anxiety during market drops, sure, but they were actually far, far safer in the long run because their purchasing power was being protected and was growing. And here it is. This is its one true purpose. The only job of a cash reserve in retirement is to give you money to live on during a market downturn, so you never have to sell your investments when they're down. That's it. It's a defensive tool. It's a shock absorber for your entire plan. This gives us a really clear rule of thumb. A cash buffer that covers 1 to 2 years of your expenses, that's your protection. But anything more than that isn't really adding safety. It's actively dragging down your portfolio's ability to grow and fight inflation for the decades ahead. So how do you actually put this into practice? Okay, let's walk through a simple, actionable plan to get your cash level right where it needs to be. Here's the 6-step plan. Step 1, figure out what you actually spend in a year, not just a guess. Step 2, set aside 12 to 24 months of that amount in a simple, easy-to-access cash reserve. That's your buffer. Step 3, for the next few years of expenses, think about a bridge of safer investments like short-term bonds. Step 4, invest everything else for long-term growth that can beat inflation. And finally, the really crucial maintenance part, Step 5 is to rebalance every year. Use your gains and good years to refill that cash bucket. And Step 6, just revisit the whole plan every few years because your life is going to change and your needs will too. This slide just sums it all up perfectly. The goal is not to have zero cash. The goal is to have just enough to protect you from being forced to sell at the worst possible time. Every single dollar you hold beyond that has a cost. And that brings us to the final critical distinction. Cash is stable. The number on your statement isn't going to go down, but it isn't truly safe because your ability to buy things with that money is shrinking every single day. True safety means protecting your purchasing power for the long haul. So I'll leave you with this question to think about for your own situation. Take an honest look at the cash you're holding right now. Is it just providing that comfortable feeling of stability, or is it actually working as part of a plan to keep you truly financially safe for all the decades to come?